Hi, good morning. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I had a question which is, I think, especially interesting because it illustrates two different ways of thinking. And one is a Western mind where the ideas of values and quantities of products bought is in abundance, and the Filipino mind where people are poor and have to think in terms of tiny amounts bought at high cost, but that's all that they can afford. Well, what are we talking about? We're talking about one of the products that is most advertised on television in the Philippines. In the Philippines, all of the women with their beautiful, long, shiny black hair spend money on that very thing. It is their mark of beauty, and it is highly valued and highly cosseted, I think is probably the best way to put that. So the question was from one of our subscribers, described himself as Psychosoft 1, I think about the one. I know about the Psychosoft. Alright, so now, I always assumed that this man knows about the Filipino way of life because he talks about the sachets. Now, in the Philippines, when you buy shampoo, I don't have a sachet to show you, okay? But the sachet, I mean, look at this next to my face. The sachet will be about this big, and it will contain a tiny amount of shampoo, and you'll pay, let me ask my wife, Beth, how much is a sachet of shampoo?
6 pesos.
How much?
6.
6 pesos. Now, 6 pesos buys you enough shampoo to shampoo your hair once. That's even if you have long black hair, I think. Conditioner is another thing, and it's also bought in these sachets. Now, the question from Psychosoft was, why would anybody buy at great expense for value for money the amount of shampoo which this would contain, multiplied many times into what a bottle of shampoo would actually bring? Now let's look at this. This is not a bottle of shampoo, but it may just as well be, because you would have that or more shampoo in that bottle. Now, how to explain that thinking that someone would buy? He understands if you only have the money to buy this one shampoo, one sachet, but he doesn't understand how if you're going to buy many of these, which would be able to translate into one bottle, if you multiplied how many of these you get into one bottle by the amount that you pay for each compared to the bottle, this is not very good value. Now, with the advance of companies like Costco, Americans especially, I'm going on American experience because that was my last 20 years or so in America, so that I was in with the American way of life. And when you go to Costco, you pay, I don't know what it was, 20, 30, 60, $80 for a membership of that, which allowed you to go in and buy products in great quantities. So there you have the thinking of abundance, and people were, especially those in earthquake country, they were advised to lay in great stocks of things, especially canned goods and things that you would not be able perhaps to get if there was an earthquake and the infrastructure was shot to heck. So you have a situation where people have a pantry. This is not a common thing in the Philippines, right? Because people buy per meal in some cases. They send out and they buy enough for that meal. This is what I call siege mentality, because it means that you're buying little by little and paying highly for it, which brings us to the shampoo that my friend says, I can't understand the thinking. Well, a Filipino would not be able to understand the Western way of thinking, because if you give a child who has to shampoo his hair this, he is disciplined by this. He will go out and he will use exactly this tiny amount in order to wash his hair. That's if he's not just using a bar of soap, a bar of commercial laundry soap at that. So it's all in the way that you see money and the amount that you have. Now, if you can afford to go out and think in terms of, well, I want to go to Costco, but it's not a pleasant experience because it's long lines and so on. So instead of buying one bottle of shampoo, I'm going to buy a carton of 10 or 20. The same for buying, say, a can of beans. You go out, you're not going to buy 3 or 4 cans of beans. You're going to go out and you're going to load into that huge trolley. You're going to load in a carton of 200 beans, and then you're going to put it into that overloaded pantry where you're ready for any earthquake. Now, I'm exaggerating things, all right, trying to keep this light, but that really is the thinking. And as soon as you get into Costco thinking, then you're thinking in bulk. At one time, if you went into Costco, people would be buying fairly modestly, but they'd be standing in line, drumming their fingers on the trolley, waiting for someone who was running some kind of a convenience store and buying in some bulk. Nowadays, so many people in America and in the UK, I'm assuming, and in the Western world in general, are buying in bulk. That's the way that they save money. But that's only if you have the money, right? Isn't it the same as the person who runs a clunker of a car in which it does 10 or 15 miles to the gallon, but they can't afford to buy a brand new car which would do 35 miles to the gallon. And the person who can afford to buy a brand new car doesn't buy a diesel, even though the diesel would give him 35 to the gallon instead of 25 to the gallon, and he doesn't buy that because he can't afford the extra that you would need for a diesel, even though it would save money. So you see, there's a whole thing of where it goes round and round and round, and the idea of buying what you can with the value that you can afford is not really that hard to understand. Many a person, even in a store, when we talk about sari storage stores, that's the lowest of the low convenience store. It's usually run by someone who cannot afford to have an extensive amount of stock. So very often you'll go and you ask for some very ordinary thing and they'll say, sorry, out of stock. That will be until he can go to, even to Altoras, which is no Costco. He can go there and buy and then sell for a few pesos profit. That's the level of business that a very poor person is forced to deal in. They can't afford to go out and buy a bottle. So they go out and they buy 5 of these. Now, we are able, because of some of the great gifts that we've received, where we've received a box and it has, say, 2 bottles of shampoo. Well, they don't send 2 sachets of shampoo, they send 2 bottles. Now, let me just explain to you that there are 7 children in our lives on the hill. 7 children, and they're going to be washing their hair. Now, if you give them this, this is what they use. If you give them a bottle, they will use 4 times what is in this. Now where is your value for money gone? Because the Filipino who is poor does not think in terms of abundance. So when they're given abundance, they really don't know how to ration. And instead of going in and taking the bottle and pouring out the same amount that comes out of a little sachet like this, so that the bottle does indeed last as long as multiples of this, then you get real value for money. But the thinking is not there because the experience has not been there. It's not hard to understand if you think about it just for a moment. Psychosoft, you've had the experience of being here and being there where you are now. It's not hard to understand. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for looking in.